crown a champion, a champion. This is me, I still on it, 'cause you all wanna be loved. Yeah, you all wanna be loved.
Hey, and happy hump day. Welcome to the Crimson Dynasty. Look, we're so glad to have you here. I just want to say welcome to those who are new and welcome back to those who have been here before. We know that we have some very loyal supporters and y'all always show up in the live chat, so we really appreciate it. Now, before we get started, be sure to hit that like button and also be sure to subscribe. I mean, you don't want to miss out on the great content that we have. We have about 4 shows right now on the Bama Standard Network and counting. So make sure you subscribe and turn on the notifications as well. Now, like I said, this is the Crimson Dynasty. We're a sister show of the Bama Standard Network. So I know that a lot of you are familiar with them, a lot of the guys. I know the familiar face that we have here tonight with Dan. So before we get started, we do have a lot of hot topics for tonight. But before we get started, I have to give a shout out to our sponsor, Workspace Solutions. So we do have their website below in the banner listed on the screen. Now, if your business needs a digital presence or even a full-fledged marketing team at an affordable price, be sure to visit their website and check out what they have to offer. And you can also contact them directly. Be sure to let them know that we sent you over, and I'm sure that they could hook you up. So like I said, this is a Crimson Dynasty. I'm your host. My name is Sishi. I'm a huge Bama fan, graduated from there, all that good stuff. So, we have some hot stuff to talk about like we've had over the last few weeks. But I do want to mention that we also have 2 of our guest co-hosts. I can't say enough about them, and they both bring something just so unique to the show that I know that a lot of our viewers just really enjoy. Now, we want y'all to light up that live chat tonight. We always enjoy that. I try not to pay too much attention to it throughout the show, but I do go back and look at it. So just don't say nothing crazy because I might have to, call you out on the next episode. But I do want to introduce one of our guest co-hosts, Dan James IV. Now, a lot of y'all are familiar with him from our Tuesday night show, The Final Whistle, and he's been dubbed as the lead recruiting analyst, and for a reason. I mean, this guy, you can mention any name currently or in the past or even in the future, and he'll know a lot about them. So he's kind of like the go-to guy when you have questions about a recruit or, maybe some past ratings for certain guys. So he's definitely the go-to guy for that. And so we also have Hannah Stevens. Now, she's our new addition to the show, and she made her debut on the Crimson Dynasty last week. She has very fresh perspectives, and she has a lot of experience as well. She's been on several college football shows, even just recently, and she has a sports broadcasting degree from Alabama. So she's, well versed in Alabama, and not even just football, but like just so many different sports across Alabama. And so we're going to get into that towards the end of the show, where we just kind of talk about, maybe basketball, golf, gymnastics, because we definitely want to shout out not just football, but, our other sports as well. Now, it's also worth mentioning that Hannah also has a radio show on ESPN Radio in Huntsville, Alabama, and she has a sports podcast, and she records about 2 podcasts per month. So we'll be sure to have Hannah drop that information towards the end of the show. But like I said, I do want to thank you, Dan and Hannah, for being here. I know I just said a mouthful, but I just had to be sure to introduce y'all. How are y'all feeling tonight?
I'm watching the basketball game. I'm a little, I don't know.
They're not being consistent
right now. We're not playing our best game at Georgia. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Me living in Georgia, I hate it.
Well, Dan, I watched the end of last week's basketball game, and we won, even though I watched. So maybe the curse is broken.
Okay.
Right. Well, hopefully we win. I mean, we look across all the sports. We've been on fire lately, and so we've been giving Auburn L's, including Ryan Williams coming to Alabama. So we want to keep dishing out those L's. So the first thing that I really want to get into tonight is just Tennessee. Right. All these NIL, issues that are going on. And, it's not even just Tennessee. There are issues going on across the NCAA, but Tennessee is one that I really want to, talk about, because we know as of this week, they've been under another NCAA investigation due to what's being called major NIL violations across multiple sports. So not even just football. But one thing that I wanted to note is that, it's been less than a year since Tennessee was hit with multiple violations under Jeremy Pruitt, and they're still under probation. So I do think that could be one of the reasons why this has, gotten so big, because, I would think that if you're currently under probation and then you kind of have some similar issues, the penalty is a lot worse. Now, I do want to kick things off. I'll start with you, Dan, on what are your thoughts right now? I mean, when we hear about, part of the violations, they're not really being too specific about what's going on, but part of the violations from what I'm hearing is, it has to do with your 2023 quarterback, Nico Iamaleava. Yeah, it's kind of hard to say it, but shout out to our Polynesian and some Samoan guys. I love Hawaii, but so he's out of California, and basically the allegations are that one of the Tennessee NIL, so they have 5 NIL collectives for the University of Tennessee. One of the collectives, basically, they're saying that they flew out Nico to Knoxville on a private jet, and he was still a high school student at that time. And it's also being said that Nico signed a deal in 2022 with this collective. I think it's called Spire, and he was technically still a junior at that time. And so to me, this is, one of the major things that are coming out of it. Like I said, they're still not being too transparent right now, but I do want to get both of your takes on this. So I'll start with you, Dan. What do you think about just, Tennessee basically being under fire again? I mean, are you surprised? How do you feel about this?
Definitely not surprised, but I am appalled. I think there was a tweet saying in the last 15 years, they've had 48. Am I correct? 40 NCAA investigations. I mean, what are we waiting on? And all they've been getting is a slap on the wrist. You know what I'm saying? Jeremy Pruitt, one guy, he got punished. Jeremy Pruitt, he was the big fall guy. So what are we waiting on? We're waiting on the death by 1,000 cuts. I mean, what are we waiting on with NCAA, with the Tennessee athletic program? Hey, if they were to fly me in the jet, I'd take the flight. You can't blame the kid. You know what I'm saying? $8 million.
Exactly.
You can't blame him, but something got to be done about the athletic program. And
exactly.
it all reeks of fat Phil. Yeah, I said it.
Fat Phil, not Fat Phil. Hannah, what are your thoughts about these allegations? I mean, do you think that they're calling them major violations. How serious do you think this is? And the fact that it's across multiple sports, and not only were you an athlete at Alabama, but you have a lot of knowledge across sports. So what do you think about this?
Yeah, so I think a couple of things to note. I mean, if you're going to make the joke about Tennessee, they low down, they dirty, they some snitches, right? But, a couple of things. So, yeah, when I was at Alabama, I was an athlete my freshman year. I was a rower. And, I remember being in there, and I don't know if you remember Jesse Williams. He was a football player at Alabama. And he and I actually were in the same room, the same time, going over all the, I remember being stressed out because they're like, if someone that is not related to you or in your family circle gives you a Christmas gift, you can't accept it. And I was over here scared, like, what if someone from church or something gave me a gift? Am I going to get in trouble, right?
Yeah.
So on one level, you have that, right? And now you have this kind of a gray area between NIL and NCAA. And I kind of talked about this last week when I talked about how NIL and the transfer portal in and of itself is not bad. It's the lack of forethought. And I think we're seeing that now in this situation, because you look at how old these kids are, you look at how players are being recruited, and you're like, well, how soon does NIL take place, right? How soon does someone like, an Arch Manning, right? Let's say this was 2-3 years ago, the NIL, Arch Manning's going to be making 9 figures before he even steps foot on campus, right? So I think part of the issue, and you kind of have to, as much as you want to blame Tennessee, you kind of have to blame the NCAA, because I feel like the NCAA has not done due diligence to make it clear. I mean, I know as an athlete, they were constantly sending emails on this and that, and you can't do this, you can do this, and the rules are changing. But as much as you want to look at Tennessee and be like, well, y'all are stupid, which they are, at the same time, you have to look at the NCAA and say, what's the boundary? What are the legitimate rules you're going to put in play for NIL that will affect juniors and seniors in high school? Because if I'm a junior or senior in high school, I am the cream of the crop at my school. If I am being recruited by a Division I school, I'm already an NIL in my local town, right? I'm probably getting free hamburgers. I'm probably getting the local dealerships, probably like, we'll drive our car around school. So if a university approaches you at that age, then what's there to say? They don't understand the rules. So anyway, it's just kind of a gray area, but I think we are honestly just seeing the beginning of what's to come. And I'm going to be honest with you, I'm not surprised Tennessee's the first SEC, but they're not going to be the last.
Agreed. And those were really good points, both from you and Dan. And I agree with you. There are so many great areas. I've had an issue with this from the start because, I do agree that the players should be paid. It does not make sense for schools to profit off of the athletes and the athletes not get paid. And those little raggedy stipends that they were getting, that's not enough. Now, I do think that one way around this too, because you start to think about, just a few years ago, it was just a matter of the guys competing on the field for a spot. But now you have, these so-called NIL valuations, like how you really can't put a value, when you really think about a person's character, how are they on and off the field, their integrity, things like that. Can you really put a value on that? And so I just think that it kind of deviates from what football is all about, that competitiveness, because now you're adding a different layer, which is the financial side of it. And then you have guys who are trying to grow in their maturity, but then you're giving them all this money and they're sitting here competing for a position with their teammate who, his valuation may be 1 million versus the other guy who may be 100,000, just to think about how that may affect them mentally. So I definitely agree. And to me, it's so crazy how over the last, let's say, couple of months, there are 3 different things that have been brought to light. Like you have the college football playoff rankings that came out where Florida State felt snubbed. And there were some gray areas in, regarding the Power 5 rankings and just, if a player is injured, et cetera, certain things were spelled out, but certain things were not. And I think that gave Florida State a false sense of hope, thinking that all they had to do was just win. But then when you look at the, level of competition, is different. So that was one. And then the second was when Coach Saban retired. And now you have this wide open transfer portal for 30 days. That makes absolutely no sense, and now Michigan is, starting to see that. But then now you have the NIL. I don't know. I feel like there's a lot that they need to clean up. I think the NCAA, they're definitely, they're liable for this. And so we know that the Tennessee's chancellor wrote a letter to the NCAA, yesterday that went pretty viral. And she essentially stated that the NIL rules are unclear, they're vague, and they're contradictory. And honestly, I can't say that she's wrong. And like you said, Hannah, they're not going to be the only SEC school. You could think about Ohio State and maybe you talk about the Caleb Downs of the world and just certain deals that we're hearing about, what are those gray areas? Because then you look at Florida State and their offensive coordinator and just kind of the rumors around, them being hit with sanctions because of NIL violations for basically using NIL payments to induce recruits, in which one of them happened to be a guy that ended up, committing to Georgia. So those gray areas need to be, I think, filled in and quickly, because it's gonna, I think because Tennessee has gotten in trouble, so many times, over the last few years, I think that's one reason why the penalty may hit them harder. I think, the Tennessee Attorney General filed a lawsuit against the NCAA today. They're saying that they could actually face, a charge of lack of institutional control, which is so much more serious. And so it's going to be interesting to see how this play out. Now, I do want to get y'all's opinions on a couple other schools. I mentioned Florida State, but also Colorado, Coach Prime. Recently it said that, Colorado, they self-reported 11 minor violations since Deion Sanders has been their football, their head coach or whatever. And so, how do y'all feel about that? Do y'all think that I know they're saying that it's minor. Do you feel like there may be some grace given since, technically Deion Sanders, first time coaching a D1 school? And I will say, let's see, a comment from Todd. They want to not put up clear guidelines. So you have 49 states doing 49 different things, yet then the NCAA wants them following guidelines. Exactly. You're 100% correct, Todd. And then you think about these states like Texas, where they have this oil money. I remember interviewing with one of the huge oil companies out there, and I'm just like, what they were willing to pay fresh out of college. I'm just like, y'all are swimming in money. To me, there even needs to, you have the University of Alabama that has only one NIL collective. Now, technically, we can have more. Jeremy Sanders, NCAA not trying to get smacked by the Supreme Court again. They probably will, because when you think about it, just think about it. Texas, they literally have no ceiling. So you can have however many, NIL collectives and pay these guys whatever. Clearly, Ohio State, and then Ohio State, you have CJ Stroud, who's donating a bunch of money. And so you would think that these funds are being distributed to to certain players. And so I definitely think that it's going to be some major things coming out of this. Willie Beeman, not surprised about minor violations at Colorado. It won't be the last time either. It won't be, because a part of what was being said about Colorado is that Coach Prime, he was kind of using social media, and I saw Shador do the same thing, where they were, as soon as the portal opened after Coach Saban retired, he posted like Alabama players, lock in, and it's just like there has to be a decorum around that, and I get what the NCAA is trying to enforce, but I just don't necessarily. They shouldn't have implemented it until the rules and the foundation was actually laid out. Now, there's one other school. This one we haven't really heard too much about, but Oregon. Now, I don't know if you all had heard about this, but towards the end of last year, there was actually a lawsuit filed against Oregon by 32 of their women athletes, and basically stating that, so there's a federal law, the Title IV federal law, basically stating that, the 32 women felt like they were being deprived of equal treatment and benefits, including athletic aid, so many things, opportunities to participate in the athletics. And so, I think that it's going to become bigger than just one school, and we're seeing it kind of play out, like kind of how the NIL, when you think about the percentage, of course, football at Oregon is a little bigger. And so they could say, well, it's percentage based, but at the same time, all the other sports matter as well. So I want to get y'all's take on that. When you think about schools like Oregon, as big as Oregon is, and you have these internal lawsuits being filed, 32 female athletes, where they feel like they're not getting access to the level of, I guess, equipment or facilities that these male dominated sports are. What do y'all think about that? And I'll start with you, Hannah. Just woman to woman, how do you feel about that? And because you were an athlete at Alabama, do you think that there's, I guess, some validity across in regards to that across the board, not just Oregon?
Yeah, and I'll say this: when we were learning about NIL, as it was kind of becoming a thing, over the last couple of years, I literally said that this is going to open up a can of worms via Title IX. Because you look at, now if I am I'm a firefighter, so I always go into everything like worst case scenario. If you prepare for the worst and that happens, you're prepared. But if you prepare for the worst and it doesn't happen, then you're set in stone. So I feel like that's what the NCAA hasn't done. They didn't go into this preparing everything. Like it should be plain on the walls where, because people are going to argue, well, because it's beach volleyball, obviously, right? Beach volleyball doesn't make as much as football, right? Well, yes, that's true. But none of the sports have ever been fair. I remember being an athlete, and I'm not bashing Alabama. Obviously, I love them. Roll Tide, But when I was a rower, it was very easy to see the gear we got versus football players or men's basketball players. And were they making more money for the university? Yes, but actually – the Alabama rowing team, only the female was Division I. We were the only program that actually were not in any type of deficit when I was in college, because obviously they were building all these facilities and stuff. But point is, when you look at something like this and you're like, well, it's not fair for the women who aren't getting paid as much. There has to be a clear line between if football is bringing in $10 million a day, right? For example, and you break that down statistically for how many players are on the team. Well, if volleyball makes $1 million a day, then it has to be the same percentage of both. And that's kind of what the issue is they don't feel like they're getting their fair share. And once again, I'll go back to saying, this is what happens when you don't think things through, because you open up a can of worms and now you have females who are like, hey, because there are some schools, like if you want to talk about maybe UConn or South Carolina or maybe even LSU right now, where their women's basketball programs are bringing in, even LSU Gymnastics, bringing in more money than some of the men's programs. And so when that goes into effect, I think we're going to see this happen more often than not, these conversations, but I would be really interested to see what rules they put into place, because this is really just starting. And I'll say this, I don't know if you noticed how hush this got over the last, couple of months when this was making news, and all of a sudden, like, we're not going to talk about this because they don't want to. It's an uncomfortable conversation, but it's one that is.
Yeah. Look, you said it. You definitely said it. And I see another comment from Willie. Oh yeah, those coaches and boosters at Colorado are willing to do whatever they can to win. You can see how they talk and move about on campus. Yeah, and all these, rappers and stuff that they have at their games. I mean, if you want to do that, that's cool. But to me, it's just it's all around a distraction. And you're right, Hannah. It's actually Title IX. I think I said Title IV. Title IX essentially focuses on gender equality by these large institutions that receive funds. And I will say this before I hand it over to Dan. So I did hear that the NCAA president, he had actually previously addressed possible inequalities that could incur due to NIL, deals. And he kind of felt like there could be a situation where the NIL opportunities goes towards more of the male dominated sports. And so my thing is like, okay, but you're the president of the NCAA. At the time, it was President Baker, Charlie Baker. And I don't know if he's still the president, but the fact that this was called out to me, it lets me know that they were aware that this could have become an issue. So my question is, well, what are you going to do about it? Because it's going to continue to be women in sports. And actually, a week from today, it's going to be National Women's Sports Day. So, something needs to be done ASAP. Now, Dan, what are your thoughts on this? I mean, this Oregon ordeal and the lawsuit was filed towards the end of the year, I think December of last year. It's a little different than what we're hearing in regards to, Tennessee and Florida State and even Colorado. But what are your thoughts? I mean, I know coming from a male perspective, you could view it a little differently, but what do you think about that?
Well, it all comes down to, taking care of your student athletes.
Mm-hmm.
They're student athletes, so they should have access to the weight room,
Yeah.
It's no different than going to Planet Fitness anywhere. Why do they have to use a little rundown weight room?
Yeah.
They're contributing to the university. They're bringing in money to the university.
Yeah.
So why can't they have access to a nice weight room? They're athletes. You want your athlete to have access to the nicest facilities,
Yeah.
So, I don't blame the female athletes at all when it comes to that. As far as the Colorado thing, they reported some minor violation, but that's common for schools to do. Alabama does it every year. They self-report infractions, because they're gonna happen.
Right.
So that's why it's good to have a very good, Coach Saban was probably the best at it, crossing, dotting I's and crossing T's, you want to make sure you catch little things. That's why you have a compliance department. Now, what's going on at Tennessee and A&M, that's just ridiculous, So there's no telling. But like as far as the NCAA goes, this is what happens when you don't establish guidelines. You know what I'm saying? Hell, we don't even know what the NCAA role is now,
Yeah, that's true. And it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. I definitely think it was worth, shedding some light on this because just seeing the amount of tension that it's gotten, even, I think the Virginia Attorney General, Tennessee. So it's so many different voices that are speaking up. Now, I still feel like a part of why Tennessee is honing in on this a little bit more is because they were already on probation. We know that they lost, a certain amount of recruits, since the whole Jeremy Pruitt and had to pay a certain amount of money. So we definitely need to keep our eyes on this. I think that this is they may use Tennessee as an example. I think they may use them as an example. And I think that lawsuit that they're filing, I don't know how far that's going to really go. But hopefully it doesn't do too much damage. I mean, I wouldn't want to see people fail, in terms of Tennessee. I think that every school can agree that the rules need to be more defined, but I hate Tennessee. They some snitches. So, but I do want to.
If there ever was a university, if Action Ford was a university, it'd be Tennessee.
It would.
It would be.
It would.
Can I say one more thing on this?
Yeah.
Because I'm reading Todd's comment about the self-governing subdivision, and I'll say this: I feel like maybe this is the point I'm trying to make, so I'll use that verbiage. Is my best friend's husband is a state house representative. So, I've kind of learned more about politics than I ever cared to know. But point is you have national government, you have state government, you have local government, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so the NCAA is like the national government, so to speak. They're kind of over all of it. And then you have the universities, right? Like, I should say the conferences. So it goes like the national government's NCAA, the state government would be like, SEC, and then the local government would be Alabama. So you have things that they can, self-regulate. But I think the biggest issue with NIL and with Title IX is that it was here and now they're trying to put all the responsibility down here. So then, you have, whether it's conferences or you have programs that are mad when really all the negative comments should be going to the national, because they've not done their job of setting those boundaries and those, responsibilities correctly. And so, because I think there's some things universities should be able to do, right? Like Dan was saying, like how Alabama's done really great at, whenever they've done something minor, that they report that. But there also has to be someone up top taking responsibility for what's going down. So I think that's kind of what we're seeing right now, is the lack of responsibility the NCAA is taking, and they're putting all the blame responsibility on people below them.
Exactly. And that's a really good point. And I do want to shout out Don Parker. Thank you for the super chat. Without naming names, the players that transferred to Texas and Ohio State, you have to ask yourself, was that Lambeau worth it? Didn't Coach Nick tell you? I agree. Look, Don, honestly, and I honestly, I want to focus tonight's show, because I feel like a lot of just our shows or other shows, we've kind of honed in on the guys who have left, because it was quite a few of them who have. But I think about that sometimes. I know that both Seth McLaughlin and Caleb Downs, they, released a statement this week basically stating why they chose Ohio State and all that. But I do feel like it's almost like a save face, because we know what it is. We know the reality of it, more so for Caleb Downs, maybe not as much, for Seth. But there's no way around it. And I want to kind of piggyback off of what you just said before we kind of, change topics, Hannah. That's a really good point. And I think too, if you're going to treat the collectives as a separate entity, then do that. You can't pick and choose when you're going to do that. And so Don Parker, thank you again for the super chat. Rocky Flop out here doing Rocky Flop things. I mean, that's all they know, right? That's all they know how to do. No, I agree with that sentiment. They need to be, treated as a separate entity. You can't pick and choose because I know that particular NIL collective put out a statement basically stating what they did and didn't do in terms of the NIL violations. And so it's almost as if they're trying to take responsibility for it. But if that's not outlined in the fine print by the NCAA, then that's just all for naught. So we'll see what happens. I honestly, I would be outraged if I was a Tennessee fan, because they're really going to come down on them. So we shall see. But I do want to, Kenny Heathcock, Hannah, roll tide, roll. Roll tide. Roll tide. And I do want to just kind of pivot a little bit to Coach DeBoer, right? Like, he's been on fire on that recruiting trail, even in the transfer portal, to some degree. And it's more so us getting guys from Washington, because we really can't hit the portal like we want to. But I do want to mention a comment. Paul Feinbaum said something a couple days ago that I agree with wholeheartedly. He said that he basically believes that people overreacted to the news of Coach Saban retiring. And he essentially said that people panicked. But he also said one thing that I think should help a lot of Alabama fans who are still kind of on the fence or still a little down about Coach Saban leaving. He said that Coach DeBoer is one of the best coaches in the SEC, even on his worst day. And so that goes kind of to the guys who would have started at Alabama had they stayed, but they decided to leave, for the however many millions that they got, and I think that sometimes the parents may, kind of affect that. But that's why I felt like they should have given it a little bit more time to make that type of decision. But, to each his own. So we're looking at recruiting. We're on that trail that, we're lighting the trail on fire. Of course, we had Ryan Williams, and he spoke volumes, as far as Coach DeBoer. Coach DeBoer really just had to re-recruit him. And I know that that's not easy to do, but we also have to give props to, Jalen Eboigbe, who's coming in. He's a 2024 class cornerback, and Roll Tide Willie. I believe that they both played a huge role in getting Ryan Williams, but also some of the guys, from Washington that came in. Now, I want to get y'all's opinions on this. So Coach DeBoer, he was seen at the Reese's Senior Bowl practice. And of course, everyone wanted to interview him, and he just seems so optimistic. I want to get y'all's grades. Now, if you had to grade Coach DeBoer on how he's done so far, keeping in mind that he's only technically, I guess Friday would be a full, 2, maybe 3 weeks, 3 weeks,
3 weeks.
I think. 3 weeks. Yeah. I want to get y'all's grades. How well do y'all think he's doing right now? Because he's actually been out, physically going to different places, recruiting, particularly in the Southeast. But I want to know, how do y'all feel he's done between an A and an F? I'll start with you, Dan. What would you grade Coach DeBoer right now on recruiting?
A easily. The energy that he brought, he had to pick us way up. We were hit with a bombshell. That Coach Nick Saban was retiring, the GOAT, that a lot of new fans wouldn't understand, you know what I'm saying? Because Nick Saban is all they've known, me being a Stallings guy, that's how long I've been a fan. I've been a fan since '92. So I've been through it, so coming in 3 weeks, being able to do what he has done, and we really did. We had to make the right hire, because a lot of other coaches, you know what I'm saying, we be piecing together a team by now.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So for him to come in and have to re-recruit the guy that was on staff, and then hold the class together, and still be able to bring his guys in. He's done a tremendous job, and he hit the ground running with this 2025 class. I said, oh man, we started losing guys immediately at the 2025 class. He's doing a tremendous job. Like even today, we lost Zion Grady, top 50 player in the class, DN out of Alabama, and we lost him. And his plan was to visit Georgia this weekend, but we got word today that instead of visiting Georgia this weekend, he's going to come back to Tuscaloosa for business. That's because of Coach DeBoer. Coach DeBoer went to visit him today, and he convinced him, hey, don't go to Georgia. Come to see us. So the job that he's done, he come in. I mean, he's been on fire, and he kind of re-energized, the Alabama nation.
Agreed. So you'll give him an A. He's been on fire. Hannah, what would you grade Coach DeBoer in terms of recruiting so far?
I mean, I agree. I mean, you have to give him an A. I mean, I think he has done an amazing job filling impossible shoes to fill, because I mean, no matter who was going to be the next coach, there were never going to be Nick Saban. And I think, I think what you said is correct. And I agree with Paul that people panicked, but I mean, it's just insane to think about. I mean, I don't think really anyone, I mean, even Kristen, his daughter, said that they knew it was going to happen sometime, but they never thought until that day she didn't know it was going to retire either. And so I think when you look at how quickly everything's happened, and I say this, I think my biggest complaint with Alabama fans was not giving him time to do his job, because it's like kids are reactive, right? Like these are like teenage boys. I mean, they're some of the most reactive people on the planet, teenagers. So when they're like, oh, the coach, I was going to quit. No, I'm done. Forget them. Like, I'll go make more money somewhere else, right? They're reacting emotionally. They're not reacting logically. And so I think what you're seeing is some of these players being like, oh, Nick Saban's gone. Well, the whole program's going to go to pot. They don't half these kids don't even know who Mike Shula is, right? They don't know how bad a program was, And so I think, I think for me, the most frustrating part was seeing them react to not giving him time, because like Dan said, he had to go in order. He had to go there. And I think the first people he had to win over weren't the current players. It was the current coaches, because I think he knew that if he could get the coaches to buy in, then he could get the players to do so as well, because he knew that the assistant coaches were really the glue. It's kind of like the people who were keeping that team together. Even a guy like Jeff Allen, right, who has been there forever, and some of these guys who have been there for the last 3 or 4 coaches. So I think that was the first part. And then he had to re-recruit the current players. And then he had players that were, 2024, 2025 were like, well, you're not giving me time of day. And we're like, listen, he can't. He has to keep players on the team, or else we're not going to have a team to put on the field for A Day. And so I give him an A, because I think not only has he done a good job keeping coaches, bringing in new coaches, and I think we're going to be very surprised in a good way, even with our defensive coordinator, with our, our new offensive coordinator. We're going to see a different type of team. But I also think that I am very excited about how he's handled the players that have been coming on campus. Like Ryan Williams, he made a decision to let his entire family dress out with him. What Ryan Williams was family. And I think Kalen DeBoer has done an amazing job adjusting and making a new identity. He's not trying to be Nick Saban, but trying to create his own identity. I think that's kind of where people were panicking. But I think, honestly, there's no better coach for Alabama than Kalen DeBoer.
And 100%, I agree with both of you, and I would give him an A. I'd almost want to give him A+ at this point, And I see we have a Kalen DeBoer fanatic that's joined, Justin Rice.
Right, head of the top tier fan club, bigger than Swifties, absolutely. And I gotta ask, Hannah, are you sitting in the First Baptist Church lead pastor chair?
Oh my gosh!
No, I'm at our office, and this is like photography stuff, like you sit families on a couch So
So you taking those glamour shots like we used to at the mall?
there's no glamour coming from me. So
Oh,
it's just
God.
good to see what you get.
It's funny going back to what you're just saying, kind of rounding that out. The reaction of Alabama fans exactly mirrored the video that Funny Mane did about Alabama losing the first coin toss, everybody losing their mind, ready to kick DeBoer out the door. That's exactly how we acted. It was very foretelling, and we lived up to that. And then you have the fans around the nation who acted like a bunch of teenagers, like you said, very irresponsible, very immature. Ding dong, the witch is dead. The dynasty has crumbled to the ground. And then you also have people, even on their own fan base, saying that this is quite possibly the worst hire that Alabama has ever had. Again, I think, Dan, you said it. It has to be the new age Bama fans who have not experienced anything like what we, as the older generation, have seen. I wasn't old enough to understand what Ray Perkins went through, but that generation can definitely attest to this isn't the worst hire. Dan and I endured Mike Shula, Dennis Francione, Mike Price for 20 minutes, and then
I don't think we'll see Kalen DeBoer at a strip club anytime soon. So.
I don't think so either.
No.
Well, he does hang out with Marvin Constant in a couple of weeks, so time will tell.
Oh,
Never know.
And then Mike Shula, and everybody says that those coaches are better than Mike DeBoer. No slight to Mike Shula. As a matter of fact, I think Mike Shula gets a bad rap. I'm gonna go ahead and say it, and people are probably gonna be wanting to burn a cross on my door for even mentioning this. Shula was not bad. Let's look at Shula inherited. He inherited a program on probation, a program enduring scandal, limited scholarships, and he was said, "Here, best of luck," and expected to work a miracle with how much of a roster? And then when things start to kind of get going for him, he loses half his roster to injury. Not once, but twice.
Yeah.
When people are finally healthy, he has everybody on board. Brody Kroll doesn't have a hangnail. They go 10-2 in 2005, and they come this close to making it to the SEC championship and even the national championship. And of course, then the next year kind of went down south, and then you know what happened next? Nick Saban in, Mike Shula out. But I think that the knee-jerk reaction across the board was just really immature, and it was more wishful thinking of all the anti-Alabama fans who were just making their decisions and their hot takes off of bias.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, literally, Washington just went to the national championship. Like, to me, it just didn't make sense that you just throw them away. Don't even give the guy. Like, Coach Saban made it clear that he was going to have a hand in choosing who would be the next head coach. So you would think that with that being the case, not that you just put all your faith and trust in Coach Saban, but just with that being the case, I would think that he wouldn't just hand the program over to someone who he felt like was just going to fail and didn't understand the fundamentals. And I like how Coach DeBoer, and even I think Ryan Williams mentioned this too, just how, that focus on faith and family, that's a huge component of it. I mean, they spend the majority of their time in school anyway, and I do see Trick Dawson, the OG sugar daddy. Oh God, I'm not gonna comment on that. And I think that comment probably just annoyed Hannah because I just saw your facial expressions.
Oh no, all of our fire trucks are going by, and I'm like, what am I missing?
Okay. I thought you were about to go off on the sugar daddy.
Don't even act like you don't have groupies already. They seek you out in public places, Sishi.
Oh gosh, please be quiet, Justin. No, don't do that. Okay. Ty Alexander, Hannah look like she about to preach a sermon in that church. She might take us to church tonight, and we probably need it. Hey, Sishi, you left out the C and the apostrophe. And then what's up, Uncle Dan? look, Dan had the day off, so he's just full of light and he's on one today. Now, I do want to stay on this topic though, because we talked about we actually talked about the 2025 class and how Coach DeBoer has been out on the recruiting trail, and I think that's important because I think the same day or maybe a day after Coach Saban announced his retirement, one of our 2025 wide receivers, Jamie French, he decommitted, unfortunately. But Ryan Williams has been working to get him to recommit. So I think that this could potentially be a win. And I wanted to call this out because there's another guy who he'll be visiting Tuscaloosa this weekend, Dalen Upshaw. Now he's out of Phoenix City, Alabama, and he would be a part of that 2025 class as well. He's also a wide receiver. So I think getting Jamie French to recommit, getting Dalen Upshaw to come in and just buy into the program, the goal is to re-recruit the South. I mean, think about the Courtney Upshaws of the world and just those recruiting classes that we had where they were just so hungry. But a part of that was because they grew up with the tradition. They grew up watching the Alabama games. They grew up understanding, this whole B-Sci-Fi, mindset. And so a part of this that I wanted to mention too is that, our 2024 class wide receivers, we have quite a few, of course, Ryan Williams, we have Rico Scott coming in, Amari Jefferson, but then also those tight ends, Caleb Odom and Jay Lindsey. So I think from a receiver core and just what, Ryan Grubb, what he accomplished at Washington and what I believe he's going to accomplish at Alabama, our offense along with the defense are really set up for success. I think the fact that, guys like Damani Jackson, the cornerback from USC who had transferred to Alabama before Coach Saban retired, and also that I think LT Overton from Texas A&M, the fact that they, announced that they were transferring to Alabama before Coach Saban retired and they're still coming in, to me, that also speaks volumes, because you would think that guys like that, part of why they wanted to come to Alabama, had something to do with Coach Saban. So the fact that they're staying, I think that speaks volumes. Now, I do want to mention, let's see, Neil, y'all are babies. My first game at 6 years old was Auburn 1965. Joe Namath was quarterback.
He's got some muscles.
Awesome.
Huh?
He's got some muscles.
I see. Look, he wanted you to see that, Hannah. He wanted you to see those. I think he posted it just for you.
Probably so.
maybe so. He wanted to let you know, like, look, I got some knowledge about Alabama too. So, okay. But then it was a couple other. Let's see. Todd, hey Dan, isn't Courtney Upshaw's cousin on the team? I think Quay Russaw out of Montgomery.
No, it's Yanze Pierre.
Yanze Pierre. Yeah. Why do I get them mixed up? So Yanze Pierre is Courtney Upshaw's cousin. I wonder if Dalen Upshaw is related to him.
I think Dalen Upshaw is related to Cam Coleman, the 5-star receiver that's committed to Auburn.
To Auburn, yeah. Okay. Well, we'll see. I mean, he's visiting Tuscaloosa this weekend, so fingers crossed. Now, I also wanted to mention that we just hired North Carolina State's director of football scouting, Jatavis Sanders, and now he's been hired as our director of recruiting strategy. And now, one thing that I wanted to mention about him is that he's actually from the state of Georgia, and he was a high school football coach in Norcross, Georgia. So I think that this really helps us. This is a huge win. Some people look at the fact that, he was at North Carolina State. Well, that doesn't really mean too much with, his ties to Georgia. So I wanted to mention that because I want to get y'all's opinions on us hiring him. And shout out to, I believe he was also in the Navy. Was it Jatavis that was in the Navy, or maybe one of the others? But I wanted to mention him, but then no, it was actually the next guy. So we also got an announcement today that Coach DeBoer will be adding TCU's defensive analyst and recruiting coordinator, Aaron Hodges. Now, he served in the Navy when he graduated high school, after he graduated high school, and then he went on to college, but he was on staff at Ohio State for their football program during that 2015 timing, and he was also at Louisville. So I want to get y'all's opinions on this. It just seems like Coach DeBoer, he's one of those chess type of guys. Like, he's making strategic moves where, you have Jatavis Sanders, you have Aaron Hodges. How big do y'all feel like these wins are?
Oh, huge. They're already paying dividends, because you look at, I suggest y'all go to Bama Online and look at the visit list for this weekend. It is heavy Georgia contingent coming in. We got a California contingent, modern day. This list is loaded. You want to see a loaded visitation list? This is loaded. It's going to get probably the biggest recruiting weekend that we will see. The University of Alabama will be this weekend as far as the 2025 class is concerned, because they'll start to get smaller and smaller. But this right here is going to be a huge weekend. Just go and look at the list of names, and a lot of top players out of Georgia are visiting.
And we have to remember we got Justice Haynes out of Georgia, Caleb Downs, Jake Pope. I think Dylan Lonergan is from there. So that, we definitely want to continue to recruit the South. Hannah, how big do you think these hires are, Jatavis and Aaron? I mean, people sometimes overlook the schools, TCU and North Carolina State, but do you think that they'll have some impact to who we're able to get going forward?
Absolutely. Because I think people tend to forget that, every coach had to start somewhere, right? And I feel like it's very maybe Alabama of us to assume that we're just going to get like all these big names. I mean, we got incredibly lucky that several head coaches wanted to no longer be a head coach and become coordinators. I mean, and that says a lot about Kalen DeBoer as well. But I think we're seeing different people come in different roles than we're used to. But I think that's because, and I'll go back to my earlier point, Kalen DeBoer is doing his own thing. And I think that's one reason why Washington was so successful. And let's not forget that they made it to the national championship game with not the amount of talent that we currently have on our roster right now. So I think that Kalen DeBoer is probably one of the most strategic coaches in the NCAA because he's kind of like myself not that I'm any Kalen DeBoer, but he's a forward thinker. And I think he's thinking, what can I do now to affect 5-10 years from now? And I think we're seeing him bring in people to have different or new roles to help maybe it's the emotional connection with players and their families. Maybe it's having an idea of, let's be honest. Some of the coaches leaving stung just a little bit, We know exactly who I'm talking about. Not saying his name anymore. But I think having someone come that has experience in Georgia is huge because I feel like we kind of have a pipeline between both, right? And we're kind of competing with Kirby to get all these players from Alabama and Georgia. But I think more than that, Kalen DeBoer is doing what he can to not only win national championships, but to do it consistently. And I think that's what Nick Saban did. But see, we didn't have all this then. When Nick Saban came years ago, which felt like a lifetime ago, everything was different. The way recruiting happened, the way media happened, the way social media has happened. And I think that's becoming important. And you have to bring in guys with different ideas and be like, social media, how do we connect with guys on social media? And let's be honest, Kalen DeBoer is the first coach at Alabama football to have social media.
Exactly.
I'm like, this guy can tweet.
I'm like, what do I do about? Do I mention them? Do I tag them? I need to be careful, But we'll see how he utilizes his social media. I don't know. It could be. I don't think he's going to be a Lane Kiffin for sure, but we'll see. We'll see. Now, I did want to quickly mention, of course, A-Day. The official day has been announced, April 13th. April 13th. Now, I want to know, so this is to me going to be the debut for Coach DeBoer. It's essentially the rebirth of Alabama football. Now, he's, of course, I think from a marketing perspective, he's doing really well as far as the different interviews he's been having leading up to A-Day, of course, between once he got to Alabama and up till now. And I do believe he's going to continue that trail. He was on Pat McAfee, just a few different, big shows. And I think that's good. I think it shows how likable of a person he is because a part of success is strategy. And that was the word that you mentioned, Hannah, just how strategic he's been. And I think that he's gonna continue to do that. And like you said, it's gonna kind of lead towards just that consistency factor that we're used to, at Alabama. And so I do want to mention, though, I've seen a few people mention that we should have a night game as our A-Day. And what do y'all think about that? Do y'all think that that's something that it's almost literally like a rebirth? How impactful do y'all think that would be? And I'll start with you, Hannah, on this one.
Well, I think it'd be lit, right? I think that everyone, and I think what's so unfortunate is how few night games we get to actually embrace the lights, right? Because you look at the Iron Bowl, and hopefully this year homecoming will be again, it was Missouri, right? Hopefully that'll be a night game. But a lot of times you have LSU, Auburn, you have Tennessee. Those are always afternoon games. And if the sun goes down early enough, you can have the lights. But it would be lit, but that's not Alabama. I think Alabama is the most tradition-based program out of any country, any program in the country. The uniforms, right? Alabama is never going to have insane uniforms. They're never going to look like the Oregon Ducks. They're never going to look like Baylor. But also, I think it would be fun. I think it would be fun for the players, but I just don't know if Alabama is ever going to be willing to. Honestly, getting the lights was mind blowing. We got that, and then of course Georgia had to get theirs. They're always behind.
The
But
little brother.
yeah, they're the little brother. They got little brother syndrome. We got whites, they have to get it. Oh, we did this, we got to do it, So, I mean, I would love it personally because I think it would bring a different dynamic, but also I think just the history of it and you get to see things differently. I think you get to do more, I don't know. We'll see. But I mean, I think personally it'd be fun. But with Alabama, I mean, being the way they are with tradition and not changing anything, I mean, something else are like, no, it's always going to be afternoon.
So basically, don't get your hopes up. Dan, with the lights or without?
It would be interesting, I would be all for it. I think it would be awesome,
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah,
I think that would be a very good introduction for Coach DeBoer to come out there. I mean, we may see Coach Saban run out there. He's all over the place right now. He's out boogie boarding and doing everything, golfing, and we're gonna get to that later too. But I did want to just kind of mention something that's going on currently this week as far as practices, but also this weekend as far as the game. So the Reese's Senior Bowl. Now, I think that, this is something that to me, this is a really good opportunity for the guys to just showcase their skills in person because, a lot of these coaches who, coach the different teams, the national and the American team, along with some of the staff that they have for the games, they're familiar with these guys. But at the same time, to me, it's just completely different when you have them live there, in person to see you play. So we do have a few guys who are going to be playing, of course, Will Reichert. I think he's going to do great. Chris Braswell and Justin Eboigbe. And so I'm excited for these guys. I think that when you look at, just kind of like some of the coaches, right? Like some of the assistants, coaches and the staffers, they're kind of pulling them from different professional teams, Tennessee Titans, New York Jets. So I think it'll be good, but I haven't heard too many people talk about another game that's going on, the East-West Shrine Bowl. That's going to be in Texas tomorrow. And, you don't really hear people talk about it, but it's one of those bowl games that kind of ties into the Shriners Hospital. And I think it's a beautiful thing because you start to think about community service. And so this bowl game is for a much larger cause than just having guys play on the field. It's to benefit the young kids at the Shriners Hospital. And they actually had the kids media day earlier today. Now, I did see that one of our players, Jalen Key, he accepted the invitation to play. So, hopefully he'll get out there, get some good play time, have a good time with the kids. But I want to get y'all's thoughts. Like how impactful do you think these bowl games are in terms of just setting the guys up for success for the upcoming draft? And I will start with you, Dan, on this one.
Oh, yeah. I think it's huge. It shows competitive nature. It gets you in front of more coaches. It's very helpful. And actually, it's been very beneficial to a guy like Chris Braswell. He checked in at 6'3", 257 pounds, and he was stood out as one of the top. He was named one of the top 5 performers on day one, according to On 3 Sport. So it's always good to get more coaches' eyes on you. So the more coaches you get in front of, get to interact with, it's very beneficial to the player.
I agree. What about you, Hannah?
I agree. And I mean, I think one of the players, from Alabama that probably all time had one of the best performances was OJ Howard. And I think that Senior Bowl probably improved his draft stock so much. And that, because I'll go down to my grave saying that OJ Howard was the most underused and underutilized player ever to go through Alabama because he had, and I think you kind of saw that, once he left.
Yeah.
You kind of saw Nick Saban be like, okay, I've really got to utilize a tight end position. But OJ Howard needed the Senior Bowl to really get the reps, needed to get the, like Dan said, kind of get the opportunity to be playing in front of a lot of different scouts and people. Otherwise, they wouldn't have seen him play because he had clutch moments in Alabama. I'm not saying that, don't come in with that. He did great at Alabama. He just wasn't used enough. And I think the Senior Bowl really helped him. And I think a lot of players, regardless, and I love the Senior Bowl because I feel like it gives players an opportunity not only to better themselves, but to work with guys who they may play with in the next league. And I think it's just a really awesome opportunity. And also what you were mentioning, the Shriners Bowl, I mean, I think that's great you mentioned that because that is, I think, very forgotten, because it's kind of going on at the same time. But, I love when there are charity events that players get involved with because it shows that it's more than just a game, right? It's a connection with the community and it's a way to serve. So, I mean, I think both are amazing. But I just think both have amazing opportunities for these players that, hopefully they can utilize the next level.
Agreed. And I like I said, that community service factor, like you mentioned, it's really, it's huge. It means a lot. Now, I will say we were going to have a special guest on tonight, one of our current players, Jaden Roberts. He had some scheduling conflicts, so I'm going to actually do a ad hoc show this Friday. Right now it's scheduled for 6:30 Central. So, some of you, if you're available, be sure to tune in. It'll be right here at the Bama Standard Network. But we're going to try to get a quick session with him. I don't know if Dan and Hannah are going to join. This is kind of, something that came up where we just really want to sit down with Jaden Roberts. He had so much success last year. So we'll see.
When and where, I'll be there.
All right. Well, look. Well, y'all, if y'all don't have anything else to do Friday, or you need something better to do than what you currently have planned, this is the place to be. 6:30 Central Standard Time, 7:30 Eastern Standard Time. We'll be right here unless something changes, but y'all will know in advance. So I did want to mention that before we move on. And I know we're coming up on time, but I did say that we were going to shout out our other teams. I mean, we spend so much time talking about football, rightfully so, but I do want to kind of get into a few other sports, and then I'm going to get y'all's opinions, Hannah and Dan. So in terms of golf, we do know that one of our guys, Nick Dunlap, he is going pro, and I'm proud of him. Congratulations to you, Nick. He's officially accepted the PGA Tour membership last week. I know he had a very emotional moment when he was talking about it. So congratulations to him. And speaking of golf, we did catch Coach Saban, just enjoying his retirement. He was out golfing at the Mr. October, Celebrity Golf Classic. So a few people, Sugar Ray Leonard, Grant Hill, 50 Cent, Dave Chappelle, a lot of people who were out there. And so it looked like he's just enjoying his time. It's a lot. It's a lot.
Kirby tried to get in, but they wouldn't let him.
No, they wouldn't. They're like, no, you got to sit this one out, sir. But we did see him, I think, boarding out, the surfing on the waters. He had a little attitude when that wave hit him. And I'm like, okay, that's the Coach Saban that we remember. But I did want to mention, too, our hockey team. Now, they beat Auburn a few days ago, 20-0. I mean, they just sent them back to where they came from. But I will say that they did pay homage to the Alabama football team. And I thought that was powerful. So they wore helmets that are similar to what our football team wears. And their uniforms were actually a part of the Red, White, and Boom promotion. So our hockey team, they have a long-standing relationship with the American Legion Post 555. And so the proceeds that they're receiving, they're going to donate it to the military appreciation jersey auction. So I think that that's powerful. So shout out to our hockey team. Our men's basketball team, we're playing Georgia tonight. We want to be consistent. Like we just beat Auburn. We beat LSU. We scored 109 points, I think, against LSU. So we set a new program record, 6th time this season where we scored 100 points or more. So that's awesome. We were ranked number 24 after beating Auburn. And then I want to shout out to Coach Nate. Nate Oates. He's been doing awesome. But hopefully we beat Georgia tonight. A couple more that I want to mention, and then I want to get y'all's take on what y'all think as far as our other sports and how well we've been doing. So our women's basketball, we picked up our first SEC win this past Sunday against Kentucky. Sarah Ashley Barker, she scored a career high of 34 points. That is awesome. Our next game is tomorrow against Arkansas. We're playing at Arkansas. And then our gymnastics team, we are undefeated. As of this week, we're ranked number 6 in the Road to Nationals rankings and number 4 in the NCAA power rankings, behind Oklahoma and Kentucky and California. But we're going up against Kentucky this weekend at our Coleman Coliseum. So if you're in Tuscaloosa or the surrounding areas, be sure to support our girls. Now, I want to know from y'all, I'll start with you, Hannah. Out of all the sports I just mentioned, which one just really fired you up? Like any of them, whether it's the women's basketball, the gymnastics, any of them?
I'd say women's gymnastics, because I think when you look at how this program has transformed, I mean, Ashley, who's the head coach, she was a former Bama gymnast herself. And so I think it has been so exciting because I'm friends with her. I'm so excited to see what she's done with this program. But to go to Florida, to go to Gainesville, and to win on the road in the fashion they did. And honestly, I know people don't necessarily understand gymnastics with ties and stuff, but we tied with Arkansas in a meet that honestly, at the beginning, I was like, oh, we're losing this hands down. The composure and the confidence those gymnasts showed to continue to not only perform well, but to do amazing. It was incredible. And so I think for me, I love women's basketball. I'm very proud of them. I love seeing us become more competitive in the SEC, but I think for me, just the transition that we've seen the last couple of seasons with gymnastics. I mean, I am super excited. Honestly, I haven't seen a program, a gymnastics program this, like, I don't even know the word unified or maybe like tight since we saw under Sarah and David Patterson. And that's you're consistently winning SEC and national championship. So I'm excited to see what this program does this season.
Awesome. I agree with you. And then what about you, Dan? Who are you most impressed with? I guess all of them really, but who would you say struck you most?
Of course, Nick Dunlap. That was impressive. You know what I'm saying? Hey, he needs to go cash in.
You should.
Basketball team, before the night, I was getting excited. They brought me in, but we go on the road and lose to Georgia. If
you haven't lost yet.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We're down by 12 to Georgia.
So when y'all see Dan turn his neck to the side when he's over there, like,
oh my goodness,
just know that he's watching the game. I know it's gonna get stuck like that. You keep.
We lose that passion when we go on the road. That's one thing that frustrates me, But we got a young team. We really do. So guys are learning.
Yeah, the SEC on the road ain't easy this year.
It's not. It's not.
Look at Auburn. I mean, they lost 2 in a row. So
look at Tennessee. Yeah. They lost to South Carolina. So but losing to Georgia. See, I live in Georgia. So I'm gonna go fight my neighbor as soon as we get off. I'm going. I hate the dogs, man.
I'm still wearing my Alabama stuff. I don't care. Don't pick no fights, Dan.
Y'all just watch CNN tonight.
We don't want to see you on the news. Y'all, we are coming towards the end of our show, but I do want to give you an opportunity to pop your socials where our viewers can find you. I'll start with you, Hannah. Do you have any social media, any podcasts, any shows that you want to mention?
Yeah, a couple of things. So you can follow me on Twitter, obviously, at the UA Sign Girl. If you don't know me, I was the Bama Sign Girl. And then you can find me on Facebook as well, Hannah Stevens UA Sign Girl. And then haven't quite renamed my podcast. One of the ones I'm working on, I'm also on several radio shows, which you'll find that on my social media. And yeah, I'm so honored to be here with y'all. And I love this. It's a fun group of people to get to talk to and kind of feed off of. And I love how we think alike, but think differently at the same time.
Yeah, I agree with you. And it's been a pleasure to have you here. We're looking forward to having you on more frequently, pretty much every show, unless you can't make it. Because you have really, really valuable insights. And I think being a former athlete at Alabama, that just provides, even more for our audience. So thank you. And then Dan,
yes.
Pay attention, sir. And you either looking off to your right or you have your head down.
Oh, I was taking notes.
You weren't taking no down. Look, I told you I was going to call you out.
You did. So, okay.
What's your social media? Huh?
Social media, you catch me on Twitter at The Final Whistle Dan. You catch me on Instagram, Dan James IV. And you catch me Tuesday nights right here on the very channel. We have a great show, The Final Whistle. Wednesday nights, every Wednesday, I'm blessed to be around these two beautiful ladies here. Every Wednesday night to find the Crimson Dynasty, and we got a special show, like you say, this Friday. Catch me this Friday, we'll see.
All right. Well, y'all heard it from Dan and Hannah. And you can find me on Instagram at beauty_of_intelligence. I am on Twitter, but I rarely use it. To be honest, I don't really care a whole lot for social media, but I'm trying to just be more active. It's just a day-to-day thing, to be honest. Willie Beeman, Hannah drops jewels on all of us. She's very much appreciated. And that's one of our loyal viewers. So, and then Todd, Hannah is a great addition. Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah. So that's really good to hear. Thank you for the feedback, those who are in the live chat. And then I do want to mention, we have another show that's airing shortly after this, Teague's Take, and it's hosted by JT and George Teague. It'll air right here on the Bama Standard Network, 8:15 Central Standard Time, 9:15 Eastern Standard Time. And remember, since A-Day has been announced, April 13th, your game day, even if it's A-Day, it's not the same unless you have a title towel. So visit whitwillsports.com to order yours today. And be sure to use the promo code STANDARD for an exclusive discount. So we want to thank everyone who's tuned in. Be sure, like I said, be sure to like, be sure to comment, be sure to subscribe, hit the notification bell so you don't miss a beat. And be sure to share this video so that those who or whom, even if they're Alabama haters, let them watch this video. They can learn something. If they're a hater, they need to learn something. So be sure to send the video to those And look, Justin.
See, I heard some wild rumor that Booger McFarland said the only reason Alabama got into the college football playoff was the committee got wind that Saban would be retiring this year, and it was a going away present. What
Is that a joke?
Do you have a response to that?
Is that a joke, or are you serious? Or
Well, you hadn't gone off.
well,
You
it
hadn't gone
sounds
off
like
tonight. And
well, I know that's what you're doing, and you know what? And I rebuke you, Justin, because I told y'all last week. Anytime I go off, it's because of this one. He's usually behind the scenes stirring the pot.
She called me this one.
This one. No, if that's true, if Booger McFarland actually said that, it's just another delusional comment from Booger. He has nothing better to do. He's still sour from his college career, and maybe rightfully so. But he needs to keep our names out of his mouth unless he has something positive to say. So mind your business, Booger. And like I said before, you are the Ninja Turtle of the football space, and you need to just sit in the corner where you belong, because you don't need to be talking about Alabama unless you have something positive to say. Now, you can come to A-Day and you can rock your title towel, so be sure to visit with Will Sports and get your title towel and show your support, because honestly, haters are literally just secret fans in disguise, and they just haven't accepted it yet. So maybe in a couple of years, he'll come around and he'll realize, you know what? I really do like Alabama. I know that I could never be them. I could have never gone there. But you know what? I mean, they win all the time. Keith Holcomb, you go, girl. Yeah, we just gonna go. And Booger needs to go too. Yeah, don't get me started. Look, Justin, I'm not gonna buy into this because he always wants me to just go off on my tangents. But yeah, Booger McFarland, aka Ninja Turtle, he needs to be careful. So
yeah, what's the cutoff age of a grown man being called Booger? You know what I'm saying? At some point, he got to be like, okay, it's no longer Booger.
But it's a choice. Like, you have a choice to change your name. Like, you can legally change your name, and he chose to keep it. And so, I mean, he could go with Michelangelo, Donatello, who were the other Ninja Turtles?
His real name is Anthony.
Booger.
Huh? What?
His real name is Anthony.
Oh, I wish I could have screenshot that when you were like, oh, that made my day.
Hannah, Dan, that cannot be true. There's no way that someone.
I'll Google it.
Please do, because I will not believe tonight that that Booger's real name is Anthony. And
it is Anthony
McFarland. No. There is no way.
He could have went with Aunt, Tony, anything, but he went with Booger.
Y'all, his name is really no. Why would you choose that?
Maybe he ate them a lot.
Probably.
Oh no, no. Booger is any person or thing, especially one regarded as troublesome, unpleasant, etc. And he said, as a child, he got as a child because I was a bad kid getting into a lot of wild stuff.
Well, apparently he still is, because he's still a wild kid. That's troublesome.
Why he hasn't changed it.
What did Maya Angelou say? When someone shows you who they are, believe them.
Believe them.
Y'all, I was not expecting this tonight. I'm like, honestly, I'm going to literally Google that. I'm just going to believe that someone like updated the wiki page about him and somebody put Anthony there, because there's no way that you're choosing to navigate through life and being called Booger as a grown man and you looking like Ninja Turtles.
Your face,
you look like that poop emoji.
The mind-blown emoji when he said that.
Oh my gosh. So I just can't, I can't accept that right now. So I'm just going to. I can't. There is no way. Booger McFarland, if you hear this, like, you could have chosen anything else, and that's what you chose. So we cannot take you seriously. Willie Beeman, he played for my Bucks. His name is really Anthony, no lies. All right. Well, I mean, I gotta accept it. Like, he shouldn't even be on television being called Booger. And the fact that people actually call him that, like, how are you gonna? Y'all, we're in a fallen state. I just don't know what else to say. I thought we were gonna end this on a high note. But is someone that we need to call out? Who
Actually, we did end on a very high note. Thank you, Cici.
Goodbye, Justin. Hannah, you had someone that you wanted to mention?
Yeah, I'm just scrolling through these comments. I'll just say this. I don't have to call anyone out. You know the difference between Alabama fans and all the other fans?
What?
Is that we live rent-free in their minds.
Mm-hmm.
And no one lives rent-free in ours. When we lose a game, we go about our day, because most programs don't realize how few games we lost under Nick Saban. But by golly, when they beat us, they rush the field. It's their national championship game. When we win, it's just another game on the schedule. But also, we don't troll other people's pages.
Yeah.
They troll us. So keep it coming.
I mean,
you can't even, what was it? Was it Wiz Khalifa or was it DJ Khaled? Who was it? You can't hate from the other side of the club and you can't even get in. Who was that?
well, it's going to be us tonight. We're taking that tonight. I mean, I honestly see that's why, Hannah, I look at the live chat, but I try not to pay too much attention because anyone can get bold behind comments, but the fact that they have nothing better to do on a Wednesday night than to sit on an Alabama show. I mean, you saw the title, you knew that this was about Alabama, but yet you still came on our show. So in one breath, we appreciate the support. Thank you. And be sure to come back next week. But in another breath, I have never spent my quality time not even just trolling, but going to the accounts of another team. Like there's literally nothing there for me. And I see another comment from Keith. Mark Twain said, never argue with an idiot. They will drag you down to their level and beat you with experience. That is very true. And that's the same thing about arguing with a fool, because y'all both end up looking like one. So honestly, Hannah, you handle that with grace, because I'm glad I didn't see that, whatever it was that they posted, because I don't know if I would have handled it with such grace. But Dan, how do you feel about these haters? I mean, what you feel like? Do you be going to Georgia or Tennessee or anyone else's, Ohio State's, any of their pages? Like, do you just feel the need to care about what they're talking about?
I have no desire. I hear them run their mouth 365 all year round. You know what I'm saying? Georgia. Tennessee, I could care less. I didn't even know they existed until tonight. But there's no way. There's no way. It's too much Bama in me to be going and worried about, looking at a Georgia or Florida or Auburn podcast. Oh my goodness. I couldn't do it. I don't know how you have time to do that. But you know what I'm saying? It's easy for them because all they have to do is look up. We don't look down.
That's right.
I mean, that's the difference, right, between an eagle and a pigeon. I mean,
hey, the only way Dan looks is sideways. He didn't look her down. He's just looking sideways.
Exactly. Y'all seen all night. The only direction that Dan is looking is either up or sideways. That's it. He barely paying attention to us. I gotta call his name. Say, Dan, come back to earth.
We just cut it to 5.
Okay, good.
I told you we still got time. We still
got time. Don't be counting us out. No, but that's a good message. We may need to clip that, what Hannah and Dan said as far as the trolls. Willie Beeman, trolling is so beta on a live chat. I just don't understand it. It is it's a beta male. It's someone who doesn't know their purpose in life, right? I mean, people who know their purpose and their calling, they're not sitting up there trolling. They're not saying negative things about a team who will mollywop them any day or time. They weren't sitting up there watching some of these people, they watch our games. They're more tuned in than we are. Like, I might be making some rotel dipper or buffalo chicken dip or something, and they're literally glued to and they're tweeting about it. I mean, we appreciate it. I think that all it does is just help our ratings continue to go up, and y'all are going to really have something to watch on April 13th. So just saying. All right, so we're coming to the end, and I just really hope that y'all enjoyed the show. We definitely, appreciate having you here, and we appreciate everyone who's live in the chat and being active and engaging. Even the ones who have hate to. I mean, at least y'all are here. We're not on your channel, so nothing to watch there. But I'm just saying.
Circle.
Huh?
I said, welcome to the winner's circle.
I mean, but they never experienced it. That's why you have to tear down goalposts. Yes. That's why you have to do those types of things, because you're not used to winning, and that's just what you do. So hopefully y'all develop a different attitude, whatever it's going to take. But I don't know, Booger McFarland, we don't have to have a talk about that. I mean, I just hate to believe that these national professional networks are allowing someone to sit up there looking like a Ninja Turtle in a suit, calling himself Booger. And you are a grown man, and you have the nerve to talk about Alabama and say that we didn't deserve to be in the top 4. Sir, you are a booger. You are troublesome. You are an oversized Ninja Turtle. Like, do not talk about Alabama. Keep your mouth off our names. And I'm going to leave it at that. Hopefully he hears, and hopefully he changes his name, because you can do that legally. So we just need to send some prayers for Booger, because
I mean, at least we weren't like Washington got blown out in the national championship game. I mean, we went in overtime, so
we shouldn't have done that, honestly.
I know we shouldn't have. I mean, don't even get me started on that. But I'm just saying, like, it's not like it's not like we got blown out by 35 points in the Rose Bowl. I mean, we went in overtime with one of the worst games of the season. So I'm just saying.
You're talking about Florida State and no, because they lost by what, like 60 points against Georgia?
No, I'm just saying, I was just giving a number. Like, at least we didn't go in there and get our tails whooped on national television.
Yeah.
And like, oh, look, told you Alabama would lose. I mean,
Yeah.
it was extremely intense. I was at the Rose Bowl and I had to leave because we were really close to we were in the bottom part of the rows, and everyone, it's like, I don't know if y'all been to the Rose Bowl. It's my first time going, but I felt so claustrophobic, and I don't even have claustrophobia. I don't even struggle with that. But everyone just kind of like, as the game got more intense, people just started like cramming down. I had to leave my row and go stand in the handicap area because I felt like I couldn't breathe. Because as soon as we went into overtime, I said, I've got to leave. I can't do this anymore. I'm gonna have to go get some breath because it was intense. But that's how intense it was. Washington, Michigan. I'm like, but if we would have gone there and gotten blown out, people would be like, oh, see, Alabama shouldn't have been in, but we deserve to get in. There ain't no way Florida State would have taken them to overtime.
Yeah, there's no way. There is no way. Ty Alexander, I love when she rants, and Uncle Dan just be smiling. Yeah, he does be smiling when I go on my rants, and Justin provokes it, so I rebuke Justin because he likes to provoke me.
This classic rant moment is brought to you by our TikTok page at the _Bama Standard, where Cici is a star.
Y'all are just y'all are funny. Yeah, well, I don't know, y'all. I guess I turned into a meme tonight with my facial expression because I had no idea that Booger is actually
I'm gonna go back and watch this because when he said that, you're like that was the highlight of the night for me.
Oh, Hannah, I don't know. I cannot accept it. I think tomorrow I'll do the research or whatever and figure out if that's. I don't know why you would choose to go through life like that, but you made that choice. So
we just cut it to 3.
All right, Dan. Well, maybe
you gotta have faith.
You have little faith.
As much as you wonder why I'm like, why are y'all Auburn fans? Like, you can be anything in the world, and you choose to be an Auburn fan or a Tennessee fan. I mean, bless your heart.
You just got to pray for him, honestly, because it's delusion. I said before, delusion is at an all-time high, and that's why they watch our networks. They don't have anything else to watch. So, Dan, I think they like to see you cutting up. When you take your long breaths, when you're like, we know you got something crazy to say.
Yeah, it's crazy because now sometimes even with Georgia fans, when I get into an argument with a fan, I'm 5 minutes in before they even tell me who their team is. Do y'all get that? You know what I'm saying? I'm like, wait, by the way, who is your team?
Yeah, go there. Like, what? Yeah. What are you even talking about?
Sometimes it's like the most irrelevant fans. You're like,
it's crazy.
You're like, South Carolina. Like, when have you been relevant?
Right.
Like, we'll be like Clemson. I'm like, oh yeah, like,
why are you here?
Like,
No, like, you're not welcome in this conversation in Georgia. Right. Well, anyway. All right. Well, this has been a really good show, and I'm done with my rant, and it's been fun, Hannah and Dan. It's always awesome.
Tie game.
See, listen, we're second half teams. All of our teams are second half teams.
They are. That's not good though. We need to do better than that.
Well, I'm just saying. Oh, I know.
You're right.
I'm gonna go start a fight.
Do what?
I'm gonna go start a fight now. We are up by 2, y'all. We are up by 2.
Okay. Well, fingers crossed we win at Georgia. That would be huge. That would be, maybe they heard what we had to say. I don't know. I don't know. But y'all, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for everyone who tuned in, and be sure to come back this Friday, 6:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. Until then, have a great night and roll tide roll.
Roll tide roll. I'm gonna go kick some puppies.
Please do.